Yeah, so he's trying to ride. He's trying to ride the little guy, and the guy keeps throwing him off. And Nick Nolte says, how come you can't ride this little thing? Your ancestors rode dinosaurs. And the Mandalorian's like, okay, I'm gonna give one more shot. And he gets up. He walks up to the monster, and he just gets on his back, and he can ride it. And then that's how he overcomes his inability to ride that little guy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So then Nick Nolte leads him to the base where all the bad guys are, and that's here you go. Here's the place where you're gonna get your bounty. You're gonna get the wanted guy.
Yeah.
And so then he goes there, but there's another bounty hunter there, and it's a robot, and it's an IG robot, and they have to shoot all the bad guys together, and which they do. They accomplish this task, and then they go inside the building, and they find who the bounty is, and it's a baby Yoda.
The way everybody has fucking fallen for this goddamn puppet is like, you are just the biggest rubes in the universe. Do you not know? How do you not take one look at Baby Yoda and imagine the board meeting in Disney like 16 months ago where they hired McKinsey consultant to come in, and while Solo was kind of a bust, people had mixed reactions to The Last Jedi. We don't know about all these new things. We really need to have a winner coming out of the gate, especially with the next big one coming out at the end of the year. What do we do with this show to make it stand out and get people's attention? And some fucking Mayor Pete zombie ghoul unveils an easel with a picture of the Baby Yoda on it. And he goes, "It's Yoda, but a baby." And everyone just goes, "Oh my God." They just spontaneously stand and start clapping for him.
It's like the James Cameron pitch for Aliens, where he just writes Alien and then puts an S with a $sign through it.
Yes.
He writes Yoda on the whiteboard and then just puts baby. Except he turns the B into the Bitcoin symbol.
If you put two lines through a Y, you can make it a yen symbol.
Sure, he turns every letter
everything into a different
monetary symbol,
currency. But no, you're marks. You're rubes. You're absolute fucking rubes. And by the way, I watched this episode with Virgil because I had known that Nick Nolte was supposed to be in it, and then I watched it and I'm like, "Where's Nick Nolte?" And I realized that he's the voice of some disgusting pig man, and it really makes me think about like Alec Guinness was really embarrassed by his being involved in Star Wars. He thought it was juvenile. When kids came up and said that they loved it in it, he was embarrassed. How much more embarrassing would it be if he had been the voice of a pig man? And meanwhile, we have screen legend Nick Nolte just being like, "Yeah, hell, fine, I'll be the pig man, goddamn. Hell, I don't care. What's the matter? I'm going to go walk into the Pacific wearing my pants again. Hell, I don't care, goddamn it. I'll be the goddamn pig man. Just send the goddamn check to the goddamn bar. I don't care."
I don't see what's so bad about Baby Yoda.
It's so transparently manipulative.
It's mysterious. And
mysterious.
Imagine if you were a bounty hunter and the bounty you had to collect was a baby. You'd be morally torn by this.
By the way, apparently he's 50 years old, but a baby because Yoda was 900 when he died, so clearly his species ages very slowly. The idea that you would be a helpless baby for 50 years, at least probably 100 given how small he is. How would that evolutionarily work? My God, like fucking the sea turtles barely make it from the fucking hatch nest to the sea without getting eaten by sea fowl. How the hell is being a helpless little baby for 100 years supposed to work?
Yeah, and also, it does. It's not a proportional thing. Parrots live longer than we do, and they're basically an adult after like a year.
Yeah, ridiculous.
But still, I mean, come on, how can you hate the little guy? He's so mysterious, and he's in all the memes now.
Just come on, people! Like, how am I supposed to have any hope that this public can be roused from their stupor to seize control of their destiny, and not just allow themselves to be baked alive in a microwave? If they're going, "Ooh, Baby Yoda,"
what would you prefer, Matt? A new thing?
Yes. How about that?
We've tried the new things. We've tried new things. They're not working out.
Honestly, that kind of is the rejoinder to everyone whining about retreads and stuff. Yeah, everything new is terrible too.
Everything is new. Just make incremental changes to the things that we're familiar with. And, we can still get high off, that dopamine hit of just a little bit of nostalgia and a little bit of novelty.
And turning your car on in the garage. That's the greatest high of all, kids. Parody, joke. Don't do that.
Well, what do you say? Should we start the show?
Let's pop open the hood in the Beltway garage. Going under the hood in the Beltway garage. Gonna take a look at the politics. What's going on in the Beltway garage? Has Kamala Harris dropped out?
Welcome to Under the Hood at the Beltway Garage, where we check the oil filters of democracy and sip the windshield wiper fluid of public opinion. I'm Virgil, Texas. With me, as always, local favorite Matt Chrisman.
Hey.
Before we get to the real candidates, first off, can we get some taps going for the candidates we've lost in recent
So
months?
hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
Bill DeBunglio bungled his way out of the race back in September, joining Rudy Giuliani, John Lindsay, and George McClellan Jr. in the annals of Big Apple mayors who ran for president and ate shit.
By the way, when I was out of town, I listened to the episode, and you fucking tried to correct me in a show I wasn't on, which is bad pool, in my opinion, because some pedant nerd said, actually, one of the mayors in New York became vice president or something. That was in the 19th century before there was a combined mayor of New York. Brooklyn wasn't part of the city yet until 1898, I believe. I'm not counting anybody from before that because that wasn't the same city.
Once again, this long-running controversy, which could probably be very easily resolved by reviewing a list of mayors of New York.
I'll fucking review a list of your goddamn mayors. The first mayor of New York is Seth Lowe, okay? Nobody before that counts as a mayor of New York. Shut the fuck up.
Going back, let's get the taps going again. Ohio's Tim Ryan mindfully dropped out in October.
R.I.P., baby.
Returning to Youngstown to lecture his fentanyl-plagued constituents to eat less refined sugars. And finally, on November 1st, our special guy, Beto O'Rourke, suspended his campaign.
God damn. Just ollieing off into the sunset.
Which, that came right before the Buttigieg surge this month. And I think he made a bad choice. I think he should have stuck it out.
Well, I mean, you got to assume the Buttigieg moment, like a lot of these moments, is going to end. I mean, it's very shallow, and it's very much based on just sort of especially older Democratic voters getting that Obama Q zone tingle. But then there's the inevitable response and him fucking up and stuff. I mean, he will probably fall down, but those people aren't going to want to go to anyone who doesn't give them that, and Beto could have been waiting in the wings. Problem was, for all these guys, you can't hang around if you don't have money.
Beto raised $6.1 million on his first day in the race, but he had basically run out of money by October and would have been forced to triage his campaign like Kamala Harris has. So, Harris made that choice and said, no, I'm going to stick it out, and maybe I'll be the beneficiary of some totally random surge. Whereas Beto said, no, I'm going to go home with my dog.
Wait a minute. Do it again. Say Beto O'Rourke dropped out.
Beto O'Rourke dropped out.
Say it ain't so.
Again, I think he should have stuck it out because at some point, it's got to be someone. We're just going down the list at this point. Okay, who gets the surge now? Who gets the surge now?
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is that's a weak. That bump is it's a sugar rush. It's not going to be sustainable,
It depends when it hits, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. I don't have any respect for the candidates who quit. They're quitters,
they are cowards.
Losers. I think if you start running, if you run out of money, you have $10 in the bank, doesn't matter. Just keep doing it. They're still going to invite you to like the Iowa county fairs and shit. So you still have somewhere to be and probably a hot meal.
See, that's the point. It's like Joe Seastack's still in the race. The motherfucker has $0. He has a negative campaign chest, but he's just driving around in a Honda Civic in New Hampshire. You could do that. If you're Beto O'Rourke, you can just say, I'm out of money, but I'm not out of it, and just hang out, show up weirdly and awkwardly at debates and stuff.
At least if Beto O'Rourke hopped in his hatchback and showed up at things, people would say, hey, it's Beto O'Rourke, as opposed to when Joe Seastack does, they're like, who?
What is
I don't know if you've been following this.
Erratic. What is this? What is this drifter
for the past month or so, and the Admiral's campaign pitched us on this about joining him. He has pledged to walk the length of New Hampshire, and he's been posting pictures from his campaign event where he's just in the woods alone, just like wearing like this old jacket, this old the old leather jacket, just a perfect drifter.
Yeah.
Just a
He's the
quiet
Kasich of this
old
race.
He not even a Kasich. I picture him more like a Ronin, and he's just like emerging from the woods and finding like small backwoods towns in New Hampshire where there's I don't know, some kind of like cruel local landlord,
Right.
Maybe like
everyone.
the 70s TV version of the Incredible Hulk.
Yes, or Kung Fu, the A-Team. Like the model is very well established. Joe Seastack shows up at a young widowed farm woman's house. She gives him a nice slice of pie and some well water, and then tells him about the evil agribusiness trying to move in on her land. And then he has to karate chop and tear the neck out of a bunch of thugs.
He calls the local carrier attack group in to have an F-18 strike on
Yeah,
them.
Could call him the Admiral. That's a perfect pitch. The Admiral.
He's fighting a bunch of dudes on the shore of a river in New Hampshire, pulling necks out and stuff, and then like a bunch of technicals filled with military contractors come in, and then he just whistles, and then a fucking aircraft carrier just pulls around the corner of the river, just right there.
Of Charles Creek, New Hampshire.
Yes.
The aircraft carrier pulls up in.
it's the
Thank you
perfect
for
story. And
dropping out the New England aquatic geography knowledge.
I have
there.
no idea if that's a real creek,
Oh, shit, I
but
thought it
that
was.
sounds like a place
Yeah,
that
sure.
would exist in New Hampshire.
just a man with a long backstory, but he doesn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Still, all that he has is his Admiral pin and the bracelet his daughter made him.
I would say to CSEC, why stop at New Hampshire? Walk across the entire United States. Terry Fox did it in Canada, and he is the national icon now.
He
They love that guy.
he actually didn't.
He didn't do it?
No, he died.
Well, right, but he is still an icon, and people love him.
Yeah, but I mean, he's saying he didn't finish.
He got close. God bless him.
He got close. Nobody contact us to get mad about this. We're all big supporters of Terry Fox. We all respect Terry Fox and all Canadian traditions, including your oil sands.
I love those. Oh god! By the way, the soft pulp timber. Ooh, we love that. We love that stuff. We're
But-
going to be coming for it pretty soon.
But back to Beto, I mean, that's the way you do it. You don't need a big fancy staff or stay at
that was how
5-star
he-
hotels.
And the thing is, that was his original pitch as a candidate. He was going to just drive in a pickup truck and like stand on the table at fucking diners.
He was born to be in it. He was born to drive around with his fucking dog. And,
like, how do you at that point when you run out of money and it's not working? How the hell do you just go back to Texas, especially when you have no plan? Like, he's not running against Cornyn. He has no real plan. Why do that instead of saying, "Fuck it, I'm going to go back to my indie roots, and I'm going to do a DIY campaign. Me in a truck and a dog, showing up at small all ages venues across Iowa, New Hampshire.
showing up at straight edge venues throughout the country. Well, you know why? It's because he's a quitter. He's been a quitter
He is
his
a
whole
quitter,
life.
yes, that's
Quit
the
his band.
Quit going to.
left-
came to New York. Quit. his
Classic
attempt
guy
to
moves to
become a
New York.
guy.
Lives in a fucking loft with like 25 other filthy guys.
Yep.
In a
Quit
shitty
the
band.
house.
And let's just quit that. Move back home to get like a dad at his job at his dad's fucking paperwork factory.
Mhm. Quit the house. He's a big quitter, which is what makes him the iconic Xer, the Ur-Xer.
And the sad thing is, he pivoted from being the the inspirational tall guy who stands on tables to, after the white supremacist shooting in El Paso, to being the gun guy who cusses.
He was the one who decided, I'm going to activate the Democratic base by being the one guy who say, no, we are coming for your guns.
We're coming for your fucking guns.
We're going to show up door to door, fucking Schwarzenegger in Schwarzenegger and Sabotage, breaching your door, stealing all of your guns.
And it didn't go anywhere. I mean, I understand, it made campaign sense because if you become the mass shooting guy, there's always one. So it's just free media.
Yeah, every time there's a mass shooting, you'll probably get a couple pieces.
It's the ambulance chaser strategy.
I mean,
but it went nowhere. Didn't
probably
resonate with anyone.
Also, maybe one part of the reasons it didn't go anywhere is because he got unlucky in that there was not a huge mass shooting after he became. Because imagine if there had been a Paddock level mass shooting 2 weeks after he rebranded. He might still be in it. He might have gotten all of those Mayor Pete poll numbers.
Honestly, and I think it was a bad pivot. Ultimately, it made sense. I understand the logic behind it, but history shows that it was an
But his
incorrect
decision-
thing to do. The right pivot would to be to double down on being an airhead Gen X shithead.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Just like a total bimbo candidate, because his problem is he's always been the bimbo candidate, but he tried to be taken seriously, and like nobody was buying it.
And it really.
Do you remember a single word he said at the debates?
Oh, no.
No, nothing.
Or anywhere in any case. Like, we need to rise above our petty differences. Some horse shit.
Rise above. We're gonna rise.
But
above.
imagine if instead of the debates, he just tied every issue to like some opaque reference to the West Texas hardcore scene in the late 1980s. That would be fascinating. That would actually resonate.
I have to say, I am bummed he's out, because we had an idea, Virgil and I, because we've interviewed a few candidates now, and if we could have gotten Beto, the idea would have been we would have only asked about 90s indie music. That would have been it. No policy questions. Just like what do you think is the best Weezer album? Like that.
Is Brighten the Corners the Underdog Pavement classic?
See, there we go. Perfect. But I think that, his entire campaign really underlines the vapidity and honestly, the generational nihilism of the Xers, because he was trying to energize the voters, and because of his commitments ideologically and financially, he could not become any kind of populist. And also, frankly, because Bernie has a lane, and that really should tell everybody who is not a Biden, Buttigieg, centrist, to just drop out and endorse Bernie. He has that lane. You can't go there. So he said, well, I'm going to double down on all the hot button culture war shit. So not only did he say, I'm going to come for your guns, he was like, we're also going to burn down all the mega churches. And it's like, that's the kind of shit that's like totally like vapid culture war posturing. And even that didn't work, which really should tell you something. The other thing is,
I also think nobody believed he would do it because he's a quitter. He's a quitter. He would get like, he would steal 100 guns and then give up after that.
That's actually a good point. Like, everything about Beto just radiates with, that sense of a lack of commitment, detached irony, and weakness. Maybe if a different candidate who people took more seriously went all in on those culture war shit and kind of tried to do like a Republican or Democrat Trump thing, it might work. But because when Beto O'Rourke says, I'm going to burn down the mega churches and take the guns, it's like, no, you're fucking not. You're not doing shit, dude. Come on.
Moving on, just as we're saying aloha to O'Rourke, de Blasio, and Ryan, we're saying aloha to two new candidates, former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it, folks.
Let's talk about Deval Patrick for a minute, because his strategy is, debates are not for me. And because of the DNC's, I would say, frankly, onerous debate rules, like not a chance in hell he could even get on that stage, which means, sorry, you're not a candidate. You're not. You don't exist if you're not on the debate stage answering the stupid fucking questions. He was, of course, a managing director at Bain Capital. Which I guess everyone from Massachusetts has to work for Bain Capital.
Yeah, it's like how you have to be in the IDF if you're Israeli.
He's also a good friend of Barack Obama, who reportedly urged him to run earlier in the year, which he might have gotten somewhere if he had done that.
Well, see, this whole thing really shows you how, if you're on the left and you see any kind of hope in hollowing out and destroying the current Democratic Party, your greatest, honestly, as much as Obama was a demon who took all of the radical energy and disillusionment that came out of the end of the Bush years and the economic collapse and totally demobilized it on purpose because he was a cynical piece of shit, that was bad. But the good news is that the same fecklessness and lack of any kind of passion or interest that marked his presidency has also marked his post-presidency. And that's good, because there's an article in Politico this last week about
we'll get to that one,
about how he said, if Bernie looked more of a threat, I would try to stop him, because he is we know from the Tom Perez, Keith Ellison, DNC race, he is committed to trying to stop the Democratic Party from going left. But he also is a lazy, feckless shithead who doesn't really care, because if he cared, he could have actually made this impossible for Bernie. Like, imagine if he decided that Deval Patrick was him, because he sees an electorate that clearly is nostalgic for the Obama years, and is like, well, this guy is basically me. I remember when Obama was president, people were like, look at this governor of Massachusetts. He's basically Obama. He's a black dude. He sounds the same. This is him again. He could just be like, hey, if you like Obama, here's Obama too. And
You know, like your Obama, you keep
you literally could have, if you liked your Obama, you could have kept him. But that would have required Obama to give enough of a shit in the early stages to like groom Patrick, maybe tell him don't take the job at Bain because I only won in 2012 because I was running against a cartoon monopoly man whose job was taking over companies and gutting them and firing everybody. Don't take a job with them. And then he could have been the guy, but Obama doesn't care enough. And I love it, thank God. Because now, guess what? When fucking Bernie wins Iowa and then New Hampshire and it gets like ahead of steam, I bet at that point, Obama's going to try to be like, well, better talk some sense to people. He's already like leaning towards that. But by that point, guess what, bitch? It's too fucking late. So God bless the fact that Obama sucks so much, so comprehensively as a person, that it makes him someone who can be beaten.
excited for all of that to be taken out of context. Well, with that in mind, Deval Patrick's campaign has not gotten off to a great start. At Morehouse College, where Bernie spoke last week to a huge and enthusiastic crowd, Patrick
of white bros.
Patrick canceled an event when he learned only 2 people had showed up. And that's bad form. First off, Matt and I were pissed. We were waiting there for hours. And second of all, it's like you're on your way and you just get a call saying, yeah, Governor, there's 2 people here. And you're like, fuck them. Wait a minute, those are your heads. Those are
the real Patrick heads. You're not going to like do a show for them. I mean, people are going to talk about that for years. Like, oh man, I was at Morehouse. It was just me and him. It was like he was talking directly to me because he was.
Yeah, how about that? That is your inspiring story. That's where the revolution began, which is a room of 2 people. The next event, there were 3 people. The next event, there were 4 people. And eventually, president.
Yeah, in 2098.
Here's one quick fun fact. Patrick was involved in the Ruby Ridge bungle.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes, where an FBI sniper gunned down Vicky Weaver as she was holding her 10-month-old baby.
Indeed, he did, yeah.
He was working as an assistant AG at the Justice Department in the Civil Rights Division at the time, and he ruled that the sniper had not used excessive force or violated Weaver's civil rights. He basically whitewashed it even after the FBI produced something like a 500-page internal report saying that was bad. We did a bunch of crimes there, and actually these guys should probably be indicted.
No caparino on this one. The Ruby Ridge thing is a really good litmus test for somebody because I have seen, honestly, people with my eyes say, yeah, that was fucked up, but, they were racist. And I was like, I'm sorry. If you're okay with your government blowing away a woman holding her child because she's she's a white separatist, meaning that she lives alone in a fucking Idaho warren in the middle of the woods, then you're terrifying, and I'm scared of you because what you will sign off on is not anything I want to contemplate.
But let's move on to the consequential candidate who is the only one who actually really threatens to upend the race, Mayor Bloom Bungler.
My money, it's real good right now. Always is, because I've got $50 billion.
In his first week in the race, Bloomberg has reserved $30 million in airtime through December 3rd.
Which I just found out is more than the combined output of every other campaign so far. He's going to drop more money in 1 week than everyone else has yet.
Not entirely true. Tom Steyer spent $47 million in the first 3 months. He's been counting the
same guy.
Counting the self-funders.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's 100% true. And to put that number in context, through the end of September, Bernie, who leads the field in fundraising, has raised $73 million.
Loser.
So in the first week, already cutting a check just for airtime, not even counting staff or anything like that, which he's already, obviously staffing up and paying a lot of money to these consultants who tell him to run, already spending half of what Bernie had raised up to September 30th in the first 3 quarters.
I love this shit because, once again, everyone is acting, and I think they have to keep acting this way for their sanity, like 2016 didn't happen. Hillary Clinton dropped $1 billion with a B to lose to Donald Trump. Money by itself, because you can't say money doesn't influence politics. Obviously, it functions, but it's at the infrastructural level. It's at the level of creating the context, like lobbyists, all this stuff. But in raw terms, especially during a general election or late primary stage, money by itself, what does it buy? It buys a bunch of ads that people hate watching.
you still need a product that people want to buy.
Yeah.
And Bloomberg has like a 50% negative favorability rating among fucking Democratic voters.
As has been pointed out a million times, he combines the things that both parties hate the most. He embodies every element of the nanny state that the conservatives hate, banning guns and sugary soda and stuff, and fealty to Wall Street that Democratic voters hate. It's amazing. He's a 4-quadrant shithead.
And the logic of his campaign, he believes that, one reason to not really fear Bloomberg is he's also trying to be the gun guy.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks he's built up this well of goodwill for his charitable contributions to things like Moms Demand Action, right? And he also thinks he has credibility on climate change, which was supposed to be Tom Steyer's thing, and he's also polling at 3% after spending $47 million.
Well, you're forgetting, though, Mike Bloomberg had, and he just had to resign it to run for president, a position with the UN on climate issues. And, those are the guys who are going to fix all this. So clearly he has more credibility on that.
The other plan, and this is totally unprecedented, this has never worked in the modern primary system, but let's see. Bloomberg is going to skip all 4 early states and go straight to Super Tuesday.
Insane.
Not even on the ballot in the first 4 states.
Crackhead. That is the most crackhead. That is, you just believe money buys votes at that point.
Yes.
You go, well, I'll just blanket the Super Tuesday states for the next 3 months with ads, and they're just going to be forced to vote for me out of some sort of oppressive power. Like, they just see me, and it just seeps into their brain, and they don't even know that they're slowly becoming Bloomberg voters.
Well, their idea is that after the first 4 states vote, the race will still be muddled. People are going to be unhappy with their choices, whoever emerges through that, which gives him an opening to say, hey, I'm not them.
I mean, that's possible, but the problem is that I just don't see that happening for the very simple reason that someone's going to win Iowa. By virtue of winning Iowa, that is going to give them a momentum or some sort of credibility or boost that will affect. I mean, here's basically what I'm saying is that if Bernie wins Iowa, which I think he will, I think that means he will win New Hampshire. And if he wins New Hampshire, I don't think he's going to win South Carolina, but he could finish a strong second in South Carolina. And then I think he is very well positioned to win Nevada. And he is, even now, he has a great California organization and is polling at the top of all the polls I've seen out of California. And if he goes into California having won 3 of the first 4 primaries, and then he wins California, and then Bernie has won the first 3 of the first 4 primaries, I'm sorry, you can drop all the money in the world into all of your fucking brainwashing bullshit. The reality of the race is going to dictate people's votes way more than any amount of what are the ads even going to be? Hello, I'm Michael Bloomberg. I really want to take all of your guns and soda. Is that really going to get the people, the voters of Alabama?
You're just doing Adam Friedland there. I think if Adam Friedland spent $30 million and like in between, in every single commercial break when you're watching football on Thanksgiving, you just see Adam Friedland there just smiling and going, hello.
There's one thing we know about people is that they love ads. And they love seeing ads. And if one, like, imagine that. Like, imagine you're watching a football game, and if every ad had the face of the same guy in it, how much you would hate them.
I saw a Bloomberg ad while I was at the gym the other day. And his pitch.
Oh, nice humble brag. There it is.
Well, this is the context in which
I'm healthy. I'm not dying.
In which one would see a Bloomberg ad on mute with subtitles going 4 seconds behind at the gym. And his pitch is, I'm going to give everyone who wants it Medicare or insurance. We're going to tax billionaires and 9/11 somehow.
He's saying we're going to tax billionaires.
Yes, he is.
He's just lying. He's just like, it's just a bald-faced lie.
He really shouldn't bring up 9/11 because as has happened, like what has happened this week is people remembered, oh yeah, he was Republican until literally yesterday.
I was having trouble following it because it was all in subtitles, but I got those 2 policy pitches and then it just cut to B-roll of the ruins of 9/11. I'm like, dude, you weren't mayor then. What are you talking about?
You know what he did though?
Also, 9/11 didn't even work for Giuliani. Why is it going to work
That's
for
a very
Democrats?
good point. But you know what? He was not mayor in 9/11, but he was a mayor. He was a mayor. What? He got elected in 2003?
No, he was elected right after 9/11.
All right, yeah. Because Giuliani wanted to extend to 3 terms. They didn't do it. And then he actually was able to extend it to 3 terms. But you know what he did do is that he was at the goddamn RNC in New York in 2004 endorsing George Bush. How the hell is that going to look? Well, no, it's going to look great because
gonna look
now
great
Democrats love George
It's
Bush.
time for everyone to come together. Everyone who's a true patriot. Is there more wine?
I'll give you a little.
So you think this is gonna be a big bungle?
I mean, it's unprecedented, right? No one has ever. I think Steyer has thrown a ton of money into this race, and it's nothing compared to what Bloomberg is doing.
No, and I see Steyer ads all the time.
I've seen a number of Steyer ads. His pitch is Trump was a bad businessman. I'm a good businessman. Blow my goddamn brains out.
I saw a Steyer ad during Bob's Burgers on Adult Swim.
The thing about Steyer is that he looks like a burn victim. He looks like
he really does. Yeah,
he looks like a melted candle, and that's not a good look for any human. So Bloomberg this is going to be like a first ever test. Someone trying to literally come in at the last minute and buy the nomination.
And as well, what's interesting is, I think there's no coincidence that there are now 2 billionaires running in the Democratic primary. And I think that everyone just sort of learned the wrong lesson from 2016 because they saw Trump steamroll the opposition, win the Republican primary that year, and think, okay, well, he's billionaire, I'm a billionaire, therefore I can do this. When, Trump barely spent any of his own money on that race. He did not outspend the candidate. He was like the 4th or 5th in terms of spending.
Of course, he's barely spending money. He's a cheapskate con artist.
He did it on the cheap. Frankly, he probably made money on it. Just from renting out his own fucking hotel, charging the campaign for the use of his private jet.
He did do that, and he charged it to the RNC. He was a scam. He's entirely a scam artist. His position was not because he was rich; it's because he was famous. And these other nobody heard of Tom Steyer.
No.
And Mike Bloomberg is only known to New Yorkers who all hate him now. These guys, it just shows you none of these people know what they're doing.
No, absolutely
They're absolute morons.
No, absolutely not. But for all the consultants who surround Michael Bloomberg, of course, their paycheck depends on them not knowing what they're doing.
Well, that's the thing, is that if you're a guy like Mike Bloomberg and you go, I'm gonna find out what's going on. I'm gonna hire people to tell me the truth. Are you gonna tell me that anyone you could hire to say, should I run for president, who in their head is imagining gyrating in a Scrooge McDuck pile of gold coins that you gave them to consult on your presidency? Well, the Tin Pan Alley classic "We're in the Money" is playing in the background. Is going to say no. Is going to say, really, I'm going to be straight with you, Michael. You don't have a chance. Instead of saying, absolutely, Chief, you have a chance. By the way, it's going to be. I'm gonna require $1 million to create a deck that'll get you to the presidency.
So we, of course, covered Bloomberg a few episodes ago, and of course, the source of his fantastical wealth, $50 billion or so, which we have isolated as the Bloomberg Terminal.
The Bloomberg Terminal.
Since then, loyal listeners have reached out, and we're going to keep them anonymous here, but they have given us more information about what the Bloomberg Terminal is.
Hit me. I forgot who it is, but somebody tweeted something very funny. They said, you're going to make fun of Bloomberg, and yet he's the only candidate running who has successfully enacted a wealth tax on rich people in the form of getting them to pay for the fucking Bloomberg Terminal.
Here's one. My friend who works at Bloomberg told me that there's a chat platform associated with the terminal called Instant Bloomberg, and people communicate by IBing one another.
IB!
I like to think there's little Bloomberg emojis on there.
You guys need to hit me in my Bloomberg mentions, aka my BMs. Hit the BMs, folks.
Sending some lewds through the Bloomberg terminal to fellow finance sickos.
No, I've been looking at I've been looking into the Bloomberg terminal too stuff. Apparently, the key of the Bloomberg terminal is that it is intentionally made unnecessarily complicated, so that idiot rubes will buy it and think they're getting something for their money when they are absolutely not. Which, once again, running theme, these rich people are morons.
Yes.
Also creates a class of people who are trained on it, so that is a marketable skill. Like when you know both Avid and Premiere and
I know
Final
Bloomberg
Cut.
terminal.
Yeah. I've got a certification in Bloomberg terminal. Yeah. I send the best IBs in the office.
So he started with the Bloomberg terminal money, and then he turned into a media magnate. Now he owns Bloomberg News, Bloomberg Business. And there was, I don't know if you were going to bring this up, there was the story of the editor-in-chief of Bloomberg.
Oh, yeah.
Writing a public letter saying, we've always made sure that our editorials aligned with Mike's views, and we've always made sure not to investigate any of Mike's businesses or dealings. And so our editorial board is resigning to work on the Bloomberg campaign and we will not be making any unsigned editorial statements about the campaign from this point on. And this motherfucker is breaking his arm, patting himself on the back for his journalistic ethics. Instead of what is really going on is him admitting that he is an absolute fucking whore, and the entire thing is a disgusting. I mean, the entire Bloomberg News thing is a propaganda network designed to advance his boss's interests.
Now, didn't he also say we're not going to cover the campaign?
Yes.
We're not covering Bloomberg, but we're not covering the other candidates either. So you've basically rubber-roomed all of your fucking political journalists.
Yes.
Like Bloomberg did with the fucking teachers.
Yeah. And the funny thing is then they say, so we're not going to investigate the business dealings of any of the other Democratic candidates since we're not going to be doing it for for Bloomberg. And then they say, if Mike were to get the nomination and run against Trump, well, we'll see. Like he just kicks the can and says, because the implication there is, okay, so you're running against Trump. That means you can't say anything about Trump's insane record, 4 years of manifold and manifest corruption, because the guy you're batting for is also insanely corrupt.
Now, here's a message from Toto. These two finance bros, overhearing this in like a restaurant, these two finance bros are talking about how one has been making personalized skins for his Bloomberg terminal like it's Winamp. So if you ever want to know like what's going on in the business factories of Wall Street, it's guys sending each other funny IBs and like, you know, sharing custom Bloomberg mods on their terminals.
Yep.
Because, and this is technology that companies spend like tens of thousands of dollars a month. It's a subscription fucking program just to maintain a Bloomberg terminal.
Yep. And overdosing on ketamine in the bathroom of scores.
Where literally every everything that the Bloomberg terminal does is already done much more efficiently by other.
It's totally unnecessary.
And I want to close the Bloomberg segment with this story from somebody who put themselves in great danger to give us this information. He's talking about there's like a student pub at MIT.
Ugh. May I have a dram of your finest potable, milady?
And like everyone there is like a student or something. Everyone who like works there is a student. And here's what he says. You know, the pub is a cool place. It's like a safe harbor for the LGBT community and students of color and others. The downside is that it's also a safe harbor for MBA students who want to save up for their Greece spring break sailing trips by paying for beer at cost and not tipping. So, the day before graduation, some mysterious suit-clad bodyguard takes over for the student door person, and 30 minutes later, in walks the Bloomberg himself. He orders around and sits in a corner reading a newspaper and sipping a beer. The folks from the MIT office of the president go table to table telling people to invite their friends because they don't want the pub to be too empty for Bloomberg on a weeknight the day before graduation. Finally, most horrifyingly, in his graduation speech the next day, he says he frequented the pub during networking school, MBA, and got his favorite drink, Miller High Life on the rocks.
What?
Psychopath. Psychopath.
Ice in a beer. Maniac. By the way, what he's not saying is that Miller Lite on ice was in the cap of an acorn. He is a tiny man.
Miller High Life on the rocks. Just a disgusting freak beverage. There is nobody who does that. There's no culture that does that. I used to live in a Polish neighborhood, and I would go to Polish bars, and like Polish guys would drink beer mixed with this like simple syrup, and that was weird. But I had one, and it's like fine. It's like, you know, it's acceptable. It's like I get that as a cultural thing. There's no culture that does Miller High Life on the rocks.
Drinking in a room pitch black because no one knows how to change the light bulb.
Sitting alone at the fucking MBA bar at MIT.
They can never get a quorum to change the light bulb. Yeah. By the way, Bloomberg, I'm sorry. We have not elected a manlet for over 100 years. We're not going to start now. Bloomberg would be our shortest president since Madison, I think. Because Bloomberg's like 5'3", right?
He is very short. He's like 5'4", yeah.
Yeah, that's the height that James Madison was, and he is our shortest president. And he left office in the 18 teens. So it would be 200 years since we've had a president that short. Not going to happen, folks.
And he sucked. Fuck that guy.
Actually, Madison did suck. Madison, that motherfucker. Oh, dude, hold my fucking earrings. Fucking James. I mean, obviously.
You mean you're going to take the hoops off?
I'm taking the hoops off. Fucking, first of all, wrote the Constitution. Constitution, dog shit. One of the worst documents ever used to create a government. Horrible. Secondly, he is the only president, by the way, I don't know if anyone knows this.
Compromise
This is a
between
good-
the
this is a good,
slave-holding states and the mercantile
This is a good
states.
trivia. This is a good trivia answer.
Wait,
James,
ask me the question
James
first.
Madison, well, it's too late, is the only president to ever personally command an American army in the field during a battle. It was the Battle of Bladensburg during the War of 1812, and he got his ass kicked so badly that the British were able to push his army aside, take over Washington, and eat the meal that had been put on the table in the White House for him to eat before burning it down.
It's not sanitary.
Absolute dog shit. Fuck him. Bitch. Manlet piece of shit. If he is the record of manlet presidents, you should steer clear of Bloomberg.
Okay, so that's a sideshow. Let's get to the actual state of the race. Can we get some kind of guitar riff for the state of the race?
State of the race. We're going to find who's going to win. Skinny bitty boo. Whoa, we race to the top. It's down to 4 realistic candidates. Everybody else is jerking off.
In Iowa, where Joe Biden has led for months, it's now a 4-way race between Biden, Sanders, Warren, and now Buttigieg.
That's it.
Who has surged to a narrow lead in multiple surveys. Warren, who was briefly leading in Iowa and nationally last month, has gone down. Interestingly, the Buttigieg surge so far mostly limited to Iowa, where he's polling anywhere between 20 and 25%, and New Hampshire, where he's averaging about 20% in surveys. Nationally, Biden is still firmly in the lead. Buttigieg is barely out of the single digits, though that may change.
Well, it's not going to change because Buttigieg has no buy-in with anyone who is not a advanced degree white person.
So the two big stories right now is Mayor Pete going up, Elizabeth Warren surge over.
And it's funny, but the Warren's downtick is kind of uncannily traceable to the moment when she decided to hedge and straddle on Medicare for all.
It was not good. It did not look good.
It's weird.
And it's just interesting. The same thing happened to Kamala Harris at the very beginning of the race.
It's odd.
So you have a lesson right there. You could have just not done that.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm seeing people now saying like, Warren, yeah, she got Medicare for all did her in. I guess people don't really like Medicare for all. Or they're saying, I guess the purists got a hold of her. The record is pretty clear. Bernie has been ride or die for Medicare for all. His numbers haven't gone anywhere. If anything, they've gone up a little bit. Warren, because the thing is, you got to remember this. Sanders has the strongest base of support, and as we've noted since the beginning, the highest ceiling of support among anybody running. And that means that there isn't really that far for him to go down. But he also has not stultified. He stultified for a bit there, but he's been steadily creeping up in the last couple of weeks. Warren, on the other hand, goes down the moment that she starts equivocating on Medicare for all, because at that point, people look at her and go, oh, you're who I thought you were. And I either go to Bernie or they go to Mayor Pete if they never really gave a shit.
It's interesting because Warren has absorbed the attacks from her right flank, from Biden and Buttigieg and so on, who are like, you want to get rid of people's healthcare choices. You want to eliminate private insurance, and so she faltered under that pressure. It's oh no. This is it's going to be options and subsidies and so on.
Stage it out.
When it's like at that point, okay, there's really no daylight between you and whatever Mayor Pete says. That's like, oh, this is Medicare plus pro advantage.
Yep. So why not go with Mayor Pete? Why not go with the hot hand? That's the thing. And Mayor Pete has risen to the degree that Warren has failed, which really does tell you that a big chunk of Warren's support was always these awful, I hate to use the word because people get triggered, but PMC white libs. And that as soon as her stock looked like it was wavering, as soon as she started to blink, they were like, well, let's go to somebody who at least has a consistent message in the form of Mayor Pete. I saw one poll that saw Mayor Pete having gone up to the exact degree that Warren had gone down.
Right, and that's that exposes the major fault line in the race, because Warren is still somebody who can be guilted by the Washington establishment, who the various consultants and lobbyists and so on, who say, when people hear you want to eliminate private insurance, get rid of their healthcare choices, they're not going to like that. That doesn't poll well. It's not good in focus groups.
Yeah. And there's a new poll saying that support overall for Medicare for all has dropped significantly recently, because you have a full court press from the Democratic establishment, the healthcare industry itself saying this is bad. And that's what made Warren blink. But, Bernie's out there saying, just wait.
No.
Don't get rattled by this shit, because if you allow these, the vagaries of public opinion to determine what you believe, you will end up just being turned into a whiff of smoke. You will be evanescent. You will have there will be nothing to you.
And he's been upfront since the beginning about the monumental challenge of decommodifying healthcare, about eliminating that profit stream for private capital, of getting rid of private health insurance companies, which are parasites.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, hey, on this fucking debate stage, you're about to see a fucking commercial from the healthcare industry. They make billions in profits. They're going to spend a lot of them to defend the fact that they make billions in profits. Those are the stakes. Are you going to fight them, or are you going to compromise with them? And I think the past few months have shown he's literally the only candidate who will not compromise with private capital.
It's true. And that makes a difference, because I think, honestly, what made Warren blink even more than the question of, you're going to throw people off their insurance or get rid of their choices, was the question of paying for it. Because before she released her dumb 2-stage plan, that really, honestly, if you have any skin in the game and any real investment in transforming healthcare in this country, that should have put her forever on the pay no mind list. But before she did that,
healthcare is like an Atlas rocket. There needs to be multiple stages so it can leave the Earth's gravitational pull. This is all very scientific.
But it's
math.
literally the opposite of that. Once the one rocket is drawn, you're falling immediately to Earth because your political capital has been expelled. But whatever. The real thing that I think she couldn't deal with was the question of paying for it, because she could not bring herself to say we might raise the taxes of regular Americans at all. And the fact is to fund something as expansive as a national healthcare system, there would have to be a broad-based tax raise. But it will be vastly less than the amount of money you will save by not having to pay for copays and deductibles and all the awful charges incumbent in a private health insurance system. And she was I don't know if it's just because her heart pumps Kool-Aid, or because she had a bunch of consultants around her insisting that Americans hate tax raises, but she could not bring herself to make the argument. Meanwhile, Bernie has said explicitly many times, your taxes might go up a little bit, but you will never have to pay for another dime out of pocket for healthcare. Imagine the savings. And the fact is that if you are not willing to make that argument, if you're not willing to fight on those terms, then you are worthless, because every question involved in decommodifying elements of American life and reducing the rapacious power of this late capitalist Leviathan will involve a fucking trade-off. And if you are stuck in that DNC Clinton era triangulating mindset that says, no, we have to only ever argue that good things are going to happen, and we can never say there's ever going to be a trade-off for anything. Well, what does that leave you arguing? It leaves you arguing in favor of nothing, oatmeal bullshit. It means-tested garbage that will help basically nobody, but the advantage of which is, well, at least you never promised to raise anybody's taxes.
You're always going to have a $1 billion stream going into the hands of private capital, where the profits emerge from human misery.
Yes.
And we know that capital acts autonomously. That stream is going to defend itself unless you identify that as the enemy and you target it and you say, no, this is what the whole movement is fighting that, is getting private profit out of the healthcare industry.
Which is why I cannot abide anybody who argues in favor of Warren on tactical grounds. Because, I could argue about how tactically she doesn't know what she's talking about anyway. Like, for example, when it comes to how do you pass something like Medicare for all.
This is interesting. She bought the filibuster.
And the
stuff.
thing is that she says, I'm going to get rid of the filibuster. Really? You and who? You have no control over the filibuster. The filibuster is a Senate rule. And senators are never going to give up the power that they have. And the power they have is manifested in their ability to either stop or allow legislation to go through. And the higher the threshold to pass something, the more leverage they have. You have no leverage to make them change their fucking rules. Meanwhile, Bernie has said, fuck the filibuster. You can get anything through the Senate if the presiding officer of the Senate rules that it is budgetary. It relates to the budget.
If the parliamentarian rules, but you pick the parliamentarian.
Exactly.
You can fire the parliamentarian. Republicans
the VP
did it.
does.
Republicans did it.
The VP does. And you say, I'm going to have my VP tell the parliamentarian that it's 50 votes. Done. And you don't have to go after the individual power prerogative of individual senators who are you're never going to be able to get the leverage on any individual senator to get them to give up that power. And the fact that she has gone along with this filibuster bullshit means even on that narrow tactical shit, she doesn't know what she's fucking talking about. But forget all of that. If you're talking about confronting the political influence of the most awful and rapacious industries in this country, the only way you're going to defeat it is with a power strategy that involves mass participation. And the entire appeal of Warren is that she is telling people, don't worry about it. You can go back to brunch once I'm president, because I'm going to get in those back rooms and I'm going to West Wing the shit out of this. And I think the Obama administration was an 8-year example and experiment with that policy to show you that it does not fucking work.
Let's talk a minute about the Pete Buttigieg surge and whether or not we think it's durable, because Pete and Elizabeth Warren, according to opinion surveys, they have, roughly, they're drawing from the same pool of voters.
Mm-hmm.
Wider, higher income,
Mm-hmm.
higher educational attainment.
Yep.
Whereas Bernie's pool of voters, younger, diverse, lower educational attainment, lower income. Right now, if Iowa voted today, if you believe the surveys, which there's a lot of reasons not to, but it would look like Mayor Pete would win by a hair. Do you think that right now the Mayor Pete surge is something that would continue, or is this going to be like 2012, where in the Republican primary, first there was the month that Michelle Bachmann was leading in Iowa, then Rick Perry was leading nationally, then Herman Cain was leading nationally.
Santorum won the Iowa caucus.
Newt Gingrich was leading nationally in December. Then Ron Paul was leading in Iowa at New Year's. And then the last one to surge was Rick Santorum in Iowa. And it's a game of musical chairs. When it stops, okay, whoever had the surge, you got it.
Yeah.
Is this another one of those situations? Because
it's too early.
So far,
if that's the example, it's way too early.
We've seen a mini Kamala Harris surge, but not enough to take the lead. And then we saw after she did the debate Owen on Joe Biden, and then the Warren surge, which has now subsided, but I think her numbers are still pretty strong. And then now we're living in the Buttigieg surge. We are less than 2 months away from the Iowa caucus. Is there another surge, and the winner is just going to be whoever surges then?
Well, see, all right. If it's a question of, because if that's the model, there has to be somebody waiting in the wings to be the next surge person, to be the Santorum, to take the baton from Buttigieg / Herman Cain.
Which could have been
he's Herman Cain.
Which could have been Beto.
It could have honestly could have been Beto.
Yeah.
But the thing is that of the remaining candidates, I don't see anyone else.
Well, we know Kamala Harris has pulled her staff from New Hampshire and is now running an Iowa-only campaign where she's polling at like 2%.
Yeah. So she is there.
She is a warm body you could vote for.
She's hypothetically someone, but beyond, she is the only candidate who could hypothetically be the next one to get a boost.
Cory Booker is still there, though I believe he might be bounced from the next debate.
Yeah, no, he has nothing. Nobody does. Klobuchar, nobody has any kind of presence to even come close to taking the next burst from Mayor Pete.
Well, I mean, obviously the dynamics are a little bit different. In 2012, the various surges of this cavalcade of freaks and weirdos was due to the discomfort that a majority of Republicans had with, Mr. Moneybags.
I think what's going to happen, I mean, I don't know who can tell. I don't see anybody taking the baton from Mayor Pete. What I see is, I honestly do think that it is a four-way race. I think that the four who are in double digits are really locked as the only viable possible candidates.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that because, for one, it's ludicrous that Mayor Pete is here. Absolutely. The most votes that he's won in any given election was
8,000 votes. That's the most he ever got in an election, is 8,000 votes.
It's all. I mean, it's a surge built on. I mean, it's as empty as any reason anyone had to like Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing there, and it's really just it's like getting high on fumes. You know, it's like Pete Buttigieg. Liking Pete Buttigieg is the equivalent of huffing a cleaner that you find underneath your sink.
He is a single whippet.
Like, this is the worst way to get high.
Yes.
And as well, now that, once the media adjusts and starts saying he's the front runner, now he's going to get the attacks. I thought he would get attacked at the last debate, but everyone wanted to keep their powder dry that time. There's still 2 months to go. And how about this? His entire record sucks. It consistently fucking sucks.
That's the thing, is that he has nowhere to go but down from this point. And there's too much time left. Like, if this had happened, if this burst of his had happened in January, we might be talking about something. There's way too much time. And the only one who's been consistent and has the best on-the-ground game in Iowa is Bernie, which makes me think whoever is who wins the game of musical chairs to be the flavor of the month when it's time to actually vote in Iowa, they will probably finish maybe a strong, but still a second to Bernie. And if Bernie wins Iowa, I'm sorry, there's no way he doesn't win New Hampshire. And then the real question becomes, can Biden hold on to his lead in South Carolina? And if Biden holds on to his lead in South Carolina and wins South Carolina, then I honestly feel like it's a two-way race, because Mayor Pete is going to get honestly shellacked and destroyed single-digit style in South Carolina because he has literally zero black support.
That's the thing. So Mayor Pete does horribly among black voters, horribly among Latino voters, who are 2 big constituencies in the Democratic primary.
Because the only way that a guy, like a wild card candidate, a guy without real establishment buy-in like Mayor Pete wins, is by doing the Obama thing of connecting educated white liberals with like a mass of working class black voters, which is what Obama did. And the fact is that those voters are Biden voters. And and that is honestly why I think Bernie's going to win more than anything, is that the only coalition that could beat him is that Obama connection between rich white urbanites and black Southerners. And that's what beat him last time. That's what beat him. That's how Hillary beat him.
But here's what's interesting. We know that Bernie does terribly among rich white liberals.
He does. Well, that's the thing. He was beaten by Hillary because of that coalition. The fact is, though, those 2 segments are held by 2 different candidates, and they can't transfer to each other. Biden voters, there's no evidence that they will go to Mayor Pete in any context. And those rich white urbanites, they're not going to go for fucking fossil ass, Alzheimer's ass, segregation ass Joe Biden, which means if they stay separated and no one can bring them together, then Bernie's going to win. Even as the DNC rallies to try to beat him, it's going to be a replay of 2016, where you have a party apparatus desperate to defeat an attack from an outsider, but unable to deal with the collective action problem of getting behind one guy. Because here's the thing, it's like when Trump started winning and the RNC went into panic mode, they wanted to get behind one candidate. But the problem is that there is no mechanism for picking the one guy to run against Trump other than the primaries. And while you do that, Trump keeps winning them. So that's going to be the same problem they're going to have against Bernie. How do you get people to drop out? How do you get people to unite behind one when they individually think they have a shot to be the candidate, and they think, well, I'll wait for the next primary, and then they end up slowly bleeding delegates to Bernie?
Let's do some future casting.
Yes.
Can we get a riff for future casting?
Future casting, squiddly-doo. We're going to get the future. Look at the crystal ball.
Bernie's numbers have been very static throughout this race. He has been both nationally and in the early state polls within a narrow band, something like 18 to 20%.
Real cheese.
That's his floor.
The ultra comforts.
No other candidate, except for arguably Biden, can argue that they have a floor like that. Of course, Warren doesn't, because she, her campaign tanked very early on. She had the surge. Now it's going down. Buttigieg obviously came from nowhere. And Biden's numbers, have been high, but I think the consensus is here in the Beltway garage that these are artificial numbers.
Well, the thing is that national polling numbers and polls in early states could be or not, or polls in states after New Hampshire and Iowa and stuff can really kind of be discarded for the simple fact that the voting that electorate is going to be dealing with a reality that we can't really know. They're going to be dealing with a reality where there have already been primaries going on. And like the reason people like Biden is because more than anything, electability. And if you're going to vote in your state and Biden has gotten his ass kicked or has underperformed in every fucking primary and caucus before that, then his only selling point has been deeply undermined. That is why I don't think like Biden's support is insanely soft. It's a big soft.
But the other question
it's
is
so soft. You can just grab chunks. It's like a piece of King's Hawaiian bread. Just pull pieces off.
But the other question is, how soft are the support bases of Warren and Buttigieg?
I mean, we've seen
who are
for a
as well
fact
Bernie's closest opponents in Iowa.
we've seen how soft they are. Warren's supporters are clearly very feckless. Mayor Pete's supporters are people who just in the last 2 weeks are like, wow, I really enjoy the grades he got at fucking Oxford, you fucking nerds. These are feckless supporters. Bernie supporters are solid. His like we've said, his fucking floor is unprecedented.
Now, this is an interesting dynamic in Iowa because, of course, Iowa is a caucus, and most people don't really know how the Iowa caucus works because it's ludicrous.
It's insane. It shouldn't exist, honestly.
You go to a high school gymnasium where there is a marshal for every single campaign. They all give a speech, and then you physically go to where to the candidate that you support, to that group.
It's like picking a sport at high school gym.
You pick a polycule basically, and you get together and you cuddle with all the fellow supporters, and there is a minimum requirement to actually get delegates, which means if you are a Klobuchar supporter or a Castro supporter, where there's like 3 people here for Castro and 500 for Warren, you get a chance. It's very let's make a deal.
Behind door number 3.
You picked Castro. He's not getting any delegates. Now you get a choice to move to a normal candidate who might win. And everyone can shift then, and I think there's there might be another round of speeches or something, or just yelling and cajoling your neighbors. And in that event, there's a little bit of playing defense there, isn't it? Because at that point, if you're in the Sanders camp, you can want to pull Warren people to your side if Warren's doing worse than you expected her to do.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with how Bernie's been doing, if you're a Bernie supporter right now in Iowa, chances are you were a Bernie supporter back in December of 2017. Chances are you ride or die. You're not moving to another fucking candidate. Nope. It means he has the highest floor, and it means he has the most to build on.
Yeah. It means that in every one of those gymnasiums and fucking church basements that he has like when they start horse trading, no one's moving. The Bernie pool, first of all, it's going to be obviously everywhere, given his polling, it's going to be above the minimum, and it's not going anywhere. Every other supporter's pool is essentially up for grabs.
And I want to say this, and maybe we'll cut this if it sounds stupid by the time I've said it, but I follow a lot of like Bernie campaign people on Twitter, and people are very enthusiastic about Bernie's campaign. Bernie has a legion of volunteers in Iowa, like people going door to door, people talking to their neighbors, people making phone calls, and so on. And he's the only candidate where I see people say stuff like, "Well, finally convinced my mom to caucus for Bernie. Mm-hmm. Finally convinced my neighbor to vote for Bernie." Mm-hmm. And I know that there are people volunteering for Elizabeth Warren. I know that there are people volunteering for Mayor Pete because I've seen the fucking videos. But I have never seen... But as much as I like to, go on a traipse through the internet, like a digital flaneur of sorts, observing people I don't necessarily agree with other political preferences than I've never once seen a post that was like, convinced my mom to vote for Mayor Pete.
I did the high hopes dance in her living room for 5 hours, and she eventually told me she would vote for Mayor Pete.
And so, I mean, that indicates to me that, okay, Bernie has a massive campaign team and a highly disciplined Iowa team. He's got county chairs in all 99 counties in Iowa. which is very, very, very important to have all these analytics because of the way I just described the fucking caucus process, where you have to know what everyone's preferences and second preference and third preference is if you want to come out with the most delegates from a single county.
Right.
That's the only campaign where I see people actually converting people to fucking join the fold.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're in the room...
Bringing people in who are outside the political process.
I feel like when you're in the room on the day and it comes time to start redistributing those singletons from the loser pool, I don't know.
Spread the delegates around.
No one has a better pitch than fucking Bernie, you know? Like these are real committed political people. They wouldn't be standing in a fucking gym if they weren't. And you can... Bernie's seconds, Bernie's proxies can say, you know, this is our chance. This is a chance to undo the horrible damage that has been done. This is a chance to make a future that we could fucking live in. What the fuck is the Mayor Pete delegate gonna say? Is he gonna do the dance? Is he gonna just like cry and do the goddamn just like just tears coming down? It's like, what the fuck's the Warren person gonna say? Especially if she keeps fucking falling down and keeps equivocating and keeps indicating with every fucking word and statement that she does not actually care about anything and all she cares about is winning, and that she's a fucking milk-blooded chump who will blink when the fucking moment comes.
What does the Joe Biden person
What does the Joe Biden person say? Folks, he's electable. Well, you literally were in a fucking church basement in Iowa, and you somehow have the second most people here. How are you a hegemon? What is your argument? What is your argument of like resistance is futile, Borg style? Because that was what fucking Hillary had last time, and at least there was something behind that. It's like, yes, she had this like massive thing behind her. Biden is... he was never able to clear the field. There's people are still joining the race. By the time this is out, Eric Holder might have declared.
The admiral is still out there. You have not captured him yet. He is still wandering.
The admiral,
he's still causing problems for you in the backwoods of New Hampshire.
The admiral,
won't someone bring me the admiral?
The admiral's like John Paul Jones out there with a bunch of frigates in the Finger Lake regions. You can't stop him. You can't do shit. The only one with a fucking clear, meaningful message that could actually get a bunch of sappy-eyed political nerds in a room to be like, fuck it, let's be legends, is Bernie.
So here's my view on the matter. It's the same story that it was months ago. In Iowa, Bernie and Warren, they locked up the top talent early on. They have the best field operations. They have the only real field operations to speak of. I think the race, nevertheless, comes down to the two of them. And the question is, whether there is a Bernie, two questions about whether Bernie will win the Iowa caucus. One, the polls are off and they're not counting the people that Bernie's bringing into the political process.
Nope.
And so his poll numbers, which have him at like 18, 20, 22%, they are not, showing a base of support that will emerge on election day. Cuck polls. And number two is, well, how about this? We know we're riding the merry-go-round right now. What if it stops and on the caucus night and Bernie has a late surge? Because we know there's going to be minimum one other shift in this race, and that is in the 2 weeks up to the caucus day
when people start paying attention.
Actually pay attention and decide, which of course means that everything we've been doing for the past few months is totally frivolous and asinine.
Well, obviously. It's a podcast.
And I would honestly make a bet on either or both being the case, especially because of that organization I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And how important that is. Because the thing about someone like Buttigieg and his late surge is, okay, but how are you going to capitalize on it?
No.
Because you did not, you joined the race later and you were just some asshole.
Mm-hmm. And he's got a lot of money, but he doesn't have any real infrastructure behind it. I don't know how he's spending that money, but I know it has not resulted in any kind of resilient and durable group of people in these states, knocking on doors and stuff. Certainly compared to Bernie.
For my money, I think Bernie comes out of Iowa with something on the scale of 32, 34%.
Yes, I think that's true. And the thing
is a question of whether anyone else reaches that level, or the anti-Bernie field is so fractured.
The thing is, like, the parallels to 2016 are so just uncanny. I just feel like it's going to be a very similar situation. I know Ted Cruz won in Iowa in 2016, but It was a close race,
And that's not a caucus, by the way.
and also astounding because he finished Trump finished a close second in Iowa, but this is supposed to be the state where infrastructure is supposed to matter. He spent no money and had no fucking system or program or people on the ground in Iowa at all, and he still finished in a strong second place, which led him then to, of course, like dominate New Hampshire and South Carolina.
What I think is the interesting parallel is Bernie was getting wiped by Hillary up until the last few weeks.
Yep.
When
people
he
started paying
surged,
attention.
and that's where he essentially tied Hillary. He got edged out there, and as well, they did not release the actual vote totals from the caucuses, so he might have actually gotten more
There's
votes.
a lot of people in Iowa who will swear on a stack of Bibles that Bernie won and that they took it from him there. And I mean, why wouldn't they? Bernie, if he wins Iowa,
as well, Bernie, as well in 2016, people forget this, but Bernie was not planning to speak in Iowa because he himself thought he would lose Iowa.
Yeah.
But then he spoke at the very last minute.
I remember that. Yeah.
He canceled his flight.
Yeah.
But
Bernie,
he made sure that he called them on the phone, and he made sure he got a refund for that.
he told them that a relative had died and that he was a 9/11 first responder.
Nobody's going to get that reference, Matt.
It's still funny.
Yeah.
Iowa, he's going to win Iowa. And if he wins Iowa, he will win New Hampshire. I mean, he's already...
New Hampshire, where he won by a landslide
Exactly.
last time.
So
around.
he will, if he wins Iowa, it will give everyone who is on the fence permission to vote for him in Iowa, in New Hampshire. He will win New Hampshire. Outside chance he wins South Carolina, but even if he doesn't win South Carolina...
They move on to Nevada after that.
We're talking Nevada's third.
Yes,
before
Nevada-
South Carolina.
Yes, correct. Nevada's
Shit!
third.
Well, he's definitely going to win Nevada.
He
that
can
means
win.
He might win South Carolina.
He is positioned to win the first three primary states, which if you follow the media coverage of most of the people who write the fucking awful shitty news articles that we all hate and make fun of, they have not internalized the idea that Bernie might win the first
Oh, no,
three
they're
states.
going to lose their shit.
And as well, I think they have convinced themselves of their own lie. And as well, they've convinced all of the various stakeholders within the Democratic establishment that, nothing to worry about. Actually, Warren's the real insurgent here. She's the dangerous
Well,
one.
that's
And so they are consciously ignoring Bernie. And that is the strategy this time around. Okay, there's so many candidates that Bernie. Those are those weird lower class weirdos. That's not. I go to dinner parties and like Joan Didion. I don't know a single person who supports Bernie.
And also, the people who support Bernie, they don't vote.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens if they do, motherfucker. Then you're fucked.
That kind
then
of
you're
stuff.
completely
But
fucked.
they have built up the psychological barrier in their mind where the mere concept of Bernie winning any early state is totally impossible to them because, as we said during our discussion on Bloomberg, you don't know anything. You're fucking idiots. You're just highly paid idiots, and your fucking job relies on you not knowing anything.
And the highly paid idiot in chief is Barack Obama because, as that Politico article points out, he clearly does not want Bernie to get the nomination, terrified of the concept. But thank God he underestimates Bernie. If he understood the threat Bernie poses to the Democratic Party, he would have, like we said earlier, have picked a horse early, gotten behind him, and used him to clear the field.
But here's what's
instead he's like, it'll take care of itself.
But here's what's interesting.
And now it's going to be like I guarantee you, if he wins those first three primaries, Obama's going to be like, I need to get in here, and it's going to be too late.
Last time around, they had the Bernie bros smear or whatever to make it unacceptable in polite society to vote for Bernie Sanders. Yep. And this time around, of course, the strategy is we're just going to downplay him. We're just going to ignore him, which to me says, okay, so then you're not ready for the first month of voting and Bernie winning three primaries.
Not at all.
You're not at all ready, which means your smears will not have been sharpened by then. And you also wasted a lot of your energy going after Elizabeth Warren, which, thanks, Liz. If you're just a stalking horse for Bernie, that's great. You were the meat shield for Bernie.
She was. I mean, I don't think she
because
intended
at this
that,
point around, the momentum would be so strong, and Bernie obviously has the best. He has the best political machine working in California right now, which is the biggest primary of the entire season, where he is vastly outpolling everyone else, and he's vastly outpolling Kamala Harris.
And imagine how he's going to be polling when he's won 3 of the first, when he has won New Hampshire, Iowa, and Nevada, and probably maybe a second place in South Carolina, imagine what he's going to do in California.
So
he's going to win California right before Super Tuesday.
So that also, I mean, so that ultimately just says to me, oh, okay, I know all of you guys, this entire structure, you all fucking hate Bernie Sanders and you want to kneecap him, you want to destroy him, but you're out of shape. You have not been practicing on your fucking awful baseless smears against Bernie Sanders. You're probably going to drag out of the fucking cellar the that dusty old fucking Bernie bro shit from 2016, and it's going to be too little too late when you could have spent the past few months actively attacking him.
My desire for a news cycle in which we have to argue about whether Bernie Sanders is anti-Semitic might not come to pass.
That's so terrifying to them.
Let's bring this one in for a landing. Let me give you the quote from the Politico article. When it comes to Sanders, I asked one close advisor whether Obama would really lay himself on the line to prevent a Sanders nomination. Quote, I can't really confirm that, the advisor said. He hasn't said that directly to me. The only reason I'm hesitating at all is because, yeah, if Bernie were running away with it, I think maybe we would all have to say something. But I don't think that's likely. It's not happening. Another close Obama friend said, Bernie's not a Democrat.
Oh, shit. These
nice friends, Obama.
He is so blessed by his enemies. Just a bunch of blinkered, woolly-headed dipshits, totally cut off from any reality, just living in a Beltway conventional wisdom from 20 fucking years ago. And that means that when they get smacked in the face, it's going to be too late for them to fucking mobilize. And the real secret weapon for Bernie is his support among Latinos. He is the number one candidate of Hispanics. And when he wins California with a majority of the Latino vote, good luck trying to in the last minute turn it into Bernie bro white boy bullshit.
Virgil, I don't know if you had something specific prepared for the ending, and we are going a little long.
We're about to end, yeah.
But because of our upcoming trip, I was wondering if you guys might want to spend even 5 minutes baselessly opining about the UK election polls.
Okay. We'll do just a very brief thing because the last few batch of polls have shown Jez, the absolute boy, coming up in the polls. And the thing is about the UK Conservatives,
coming up like a good batch of Molly.
They are the UK Conservatives, like they get the same amount of the vote every single election. They're within a very narrow band themselves. Like they have the lowest ceiling of like 42% of the vote, which, if I recall correctly, is what Theresa May got last time around. And what the UK political class doesn't really acknowledge is the idea that there might be a groundswell of support for the Labour Party. Registrations just closed in the UK, and something on the level of 4 million voters applied to join the voter roll.
And most of them, a majority, are under 35, age cohort that is overwhelmingly pro-labor.
And there was a late-breaking story, which I think, Matt, you can possibly talk about more. So one of the Labor's campaign arguments right now is Boris Johnson, from his Brexit, he is going to open negotiations with USA healthcare companies and make a trade deal with the United States and privatize the NHS, essentially. And Boris swears up and down, no, there's no bloody deal, Jez. But Jez, he got the documents.
He got the documents. Folks, I've seen the documents, folks, and they're going to do it. And that thing is like
wait, tell people the story.
All right, so Jez has been saying for a while, and this is a fact, is that Boris, the Conservative MP, he is a Brexiteer. He was one of the guys who engineered the Brexit vote. And a Brexit will require some sort of free trade deal with the United States. Trump has said up and down, because he's Mr. Brexit, remember, that he would be in favor of a trade deal with the UK. And of course, people have pointed out, well, shit, what would that mean for the NHS, for their gloriously socialized medical system? And that even though people get annoyed with it because it's underfunded, they still vastly prefer as any sane human would, to our garbage, dipshit, awful, soul-destroying private healthcare system. And the conservative response has been, NHS is not on the table. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Even though we'll have to make a deal with the U.S., it will not involve the NHS. Well, Corbyn today released a bunch of fucking leaked documents saying that the conservative government has absolutely been in contact with the United States in regards to a trade deal after Brexit, and that the United States is insisting that the NHS be on the table, that prescription drugs be on the table for privatization. And this is the thing that the conservatives have been swearing up and down since the Brexit vote wouldn't happen. And now we know in black and white, it absolutely 100% will. And of course, Jez had a fucking press conference where he revealed the documents, and the first 4 questions from the press were about him not apologizing for being an anti-Semite. And I'm sorry that if we live in a world where you don't see that, you don't see a guy saying, this government is planning to sell your goddamn healthcare down the river to some American private equity jackals so that your fucking grandmother can have to fucking pawn her jewels to get dialysis and say, yes, maybe, but anti-Semitism, and not see the absolute fucking cynical ruse behind that, then there's no hope in electoral politics at all. And so, as Virgil was saying, even before this, the last few polls have been showing Jez slowly crawling up to within striking distance. A poll today came out. One of the most accurate pollsters from the last 2017 general. Labor within 6 points. That was before the fucking revealing of these fucking documents. We're being to be in the UK, and I was expecting to be there and spend election night destroying my brain out of nihilistic hopelessness and waking up the next day, if at all, a poisoned wreck. I expect that one way or the other, I will wake up the next morning a poisoned wreck. But more and more, I'm thinking I might be waking up a poisoned wreck out of revel and excitement and pleasure. We'll see.
On that note, I want to thank everyone who came out in New York City for the Labor International Phone Bank. I believe they will be doing another one this Sunday, December 1st, but I don't know if that's the case, and Chris will cut this if that is not the case. But if it is the case, we will put the link in that information in the description of this episode. And this is also a good point to note that, yes, we are coming to the United Kingdom in order to report in an unbiased fashion about the anti-Semitism smears about labor that are utter fucking lies. And we will be doing 2 shows, one in London. Tickets are going very quickly for that. And one in Liverpool. Link in the
Ferry
bio.
Cross the Mersey.
For those 2 shows. And we also would like to help participate and interfere in your election, which, interestingly, that phone bank and the fact that the New York City DSA is involved in it made the news. It made The Guardian because there is now a vast global anti-Semitism conspiracy aimed at getting Jeremy Corbyn elected. And as some people have pointed out on Twitter, Bernie Sanders is associated, linked to Jeremy Corbyn, possible anti-Semite himself.
We might get that news cycle after all.
It actually warms my heart to see that I know people who are good German communists go to the UK and they will be canvassing in places like Wales and England and Ireland, which is, as you know, a dominion of the United Kingdom. It's one of the kingdoms, one of the 4 kingdoms, one of the 7 kingdoms.
We got to keep those anti-Deutsch out of the place, though.
Because one interesting thing is there are actually millions of UK voters, people who are eligible to vote in the UK, who are expats. So organizing in places like New York, Berlin, Paris is more important than ever. We will be there. We hope you will be there because Jez can win this fucking thing. And frankly, he should win it for all the decent people in England, which is to say everyone who has not been personally mean to us.
And everyone who has never had a column in a British daily newspaper.
Yeah, that redundant. We will be there. Get your tickets. And as well, for Bernie Sanders, as we have just indicated to you, you might be able to elect the first socialist president of the United States. You can also piss off the worst human beings in the world, because imagine the fucking freak out when Bernie Sanders wins Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada.
Woo!
And then wins California, the biggest fucking primary in Super Tuesday.
Oh, it's going to get lit.
Can you imagine how pissed the worst fucking human beings you can imagine will be? The people who hate you and hate your fucking guts. So that's why
they're going to be screaming about him stealing cable in 1979.
That's why you need to download the Bernie app, which encourages you to put in your personal information, Sends it to Kiev or whatever, but put in your personal information, and it tells you to talk to your neighbors, which, awful, but it's necessary. Phone banking, canvassing, and donating to Bernie Sanders. We will be in the UK, and then we will be back in the United States to continue to bring you election coverage.
Arise, you prisoners of starvation.
So, till next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Jealous coward, trying to control. Rise above, we're gonna rise above. They distort what we say. Rise above, we're gonna rise above. Try to stop what we do. Rise above, we're gonna rise above. When they can't do it themselves. Rise above, we're gonna rise above. We are tired of your abuse. Try to stop us, it's no use. Society's arms of control. Rise above, we're gonna rise above. Think this smart, can't think themselves. Rise above, we're gonna rise above. Laugh at us behind our back. Rise above, we're gonna rise above. I find satisfaction in what they lack. Rise above, we're gonna rise above.